and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, February 11th, 2021.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Most much be considered the reading of the journal from the previous day.
So ordered. Consent calendar of introductory House bills, number 36. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1335, Delegate Jackson, House Rules.
Recognizing majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of House Bills 1335 through 1344.
Hearing no objections, the bills are read the first time and referred to the appropriate committees. Clerk will read the bond initiatives and the committee assignments.
Introductory House Bond Initiative number 10, referred to appropriations.
Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, report number 2. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 81, Crimes, Unattended Dogs in Extreme Weather Conditions, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 269, Department of Agriculture, Urban Agricultural Grant Program, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much we considered the reading of the amendments. The bill was amended in 4 ways. The First Amendment makes technical changes. The Second Amendment authorizes the governor to include in the annual budget an appropriation to the fund. This sets up and alters the requirements for priority of grant applications. Amendment number 3 requires MDA to seek and prioritize input from urban agriculture farms and farmer advocates in adoption of regulations. And Amendment number 4 strikes from the bill provisions that would have authorized a distribution from the Unclaimed Properties Fund to the fund. Move adoption of the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 293, Natural Resources, Organized Killing Contests, Restriction, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered.
Madam Chair. I'm sorry, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Western Maryland.
Could I ask the bill maker a question?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Thank you, thank you, Chairman Kumar. Can you?
We're all rusty. What can I say?
Can we explain briefly what the bill does? What I'm worried. Can you explain briefly what the bill does? What I'm really
sure.
Kind of concerned about is the...
Sure. This bill is in the same posture as House Bill 863, which passed the House last year, and it ran out of time in the Senate because of COVID-19. What the bill does is let me just read this directly. Okay. The bill may not be construed to prohibit a landowner, it gets rid of killing contests, but there are some exceptions. It can't be construed to prohibit a landowner or the landowner's agent or lessee from killing coyotes, foxes, or raccoons on the landowner's property, as long as the killing is not part of an organized contest, that establishes prizes, and it also cannot be construed to stop the lawful dog training or dog performance competitions. It establishes a $25 fine for each coyote, fox, or raccoon that's killed in violation of the statute.
All right. Thank you. Just a question. We have an organization in Western Maryland called Quality Deer Management, and they've had a contest to try to reduce the amount of fawns that are being killed in the spring and stuff by coyotes, and they've had a contest. This is the official organization of the Quality Deer Management to have reduced the number of coyotes that are in the area, and then they have a prize for that. Yeah. Does this prohibit that?
I don't believe it does, but I remember the issue being brought up in committee last year, and having added language that took care of that. Let me find...
That's all right.
Well,
okay. I can speak offline, sir.
Okay.
All right.
All right, that's fine.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Speaker.
I'll get this straight, Madam Speaker.
Are there any further amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 302, Environment On-Site Wastewater Services Regulation, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 311, Vehicle Laws, Intersections, Prohibited Acts, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 363, Maryland Public Ethics Law, Retaliation for Reporting or Participating in Investigation, Prohibition, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 391, Solid Waste Management, Prohibition on Releasing a Balloon into the Atmosphere. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As amended, this bill is in the same posture as House Bill 13 from 2020, as passed by the House. Of course, it's another bill that ran out of time in the Senate. The bill prohibits, with a specified exception, a person knowingly and intentionally releasing or causing to be released balloons into the atmosphere. It establishes a civil penalty of up to $250. The amendment is basically to make an exception for people who release balloons with weather equipment, with radio equipment attached to them. Move adoption of the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 5. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 732, Taxation, Tobacco Tax, Sales and Use Tax, Digital Advertising, Gross Revenues Tax.
Recognizing Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, some days down here can be pretty hard. We are not elected to office to make easy decisions. And one of the most difficult areas of policy that we confront is tax policy, because it affects every single person in the state of Maryland. It affects our economy in incredibly complex ways. And making the right decisions about taxes, I think, is one of the most basic responsibilities of a legislator. Over time, we've made a series of policy decisions in this state about how to tax, about how to raise the money we need for basic government services. And they're difficult decisions because nobody likes to pay their taxes. I don't like to pay my taxes. But it was a Republican named Oliver Wendell Holmes who said taxes are the price we pay for living in a civilized society. Government needs money. Needs money for the schools that educate our kids. It needs money to pay the police officers and the firefighters that keep us safe. It needs money to build roads and fund transit and save the bay and all of the other things that we need to do down here. So, we have to make decisions about taxes. And in making decisions about taxes, we have over time established some clear policy goals. First of all, we make use of the tax code to compensate society for the harmful impacts of certain behaviors. That is why we have tobacco taxes. It's why we have higher sales taxes on alcohol than we do on other things, because tobacco kills. I know that, but a lot of you do too. It killed my mom. It killed my grandmother. I smoked for 20 years. It might still kill me. It kills. And the decision to use tobacco is a decision that has impacts on society, not just in terms of the personal emotional impacts, but in terms of healthcare costs. People who smoke get sicker, and every single Marylander pays more because of that. Your healthcare costs are higher. Your taxes are higher because people make the decision to use tobacco. So how do we compensate for that? With tobacco taxes. And we know that the single best thing that we can do to discourage the use of tobacco, particularly among children, is to have relatively high tobacco taxes. Hence the decision in this bill to raise the taxes on tobacco in this state. Another key part of tax policy is that we believe everybody should pay their fair share. Their fair share. And unfortunately, we have a situation where there are some corporations that don't. In my district, in Burtonsville, there is a restaurant that's been around since the late 1930s. It is a community fixture. It's called Seibel's Restaurant. I know the owner pretty well. I do a lot of work with her on policy. She and I don't always agree about everything. But I want to make sure that her business stays open because, frankly, because I like her and because she employs a lot of people and because it's a community fixture. And she takes care of people in the community. My brother, who I think many of you know has schizoaffective disorder, used to go in there and, he was looking for somewhere to hang out. And he'd sit there at the counter in the bar in that restaurant for hours, and they just, give him Diet Coke after Diet Coke. They never asked him to leave. When the pandemic hit, the owner cut her own salary and tried to hold on to her employees as long as she could to take care of them. Tried to keep them on health care as long as she could. Why is it that the owners of Seibel's have to pay taxes and massive corporations like Facebook essentially don't pay any taxes in Maryland? Why is that? That's not fair. That's not everybody paying their fair share. Why is it that the owners of Thurmont Country Kitchen or the Severna Park Tap House or the original Green Turtle in Ocean City have to pay taxes and Facebook and Google essentially pay no taxes in the state of Maryland? That's what the digital ads portion of this bill is about. And unfortunately, these very powerful, very wealthy corporations have engaged in a campaign of fear-mongering in this state, telling our small business owners, if your legislators apply a tax to us, if they ask us to pay our fair share, we're going to have to increase your ad costs. Well, I don't want ad costs to go up for my small businesses, so I'll tell you what. We're calling their bluff. I want you to look on your computer, and I want you to pull up HB 1200. And that has specific language in it that would forbid these companies that make at least $100 million from digital advertising from passing any costs of this tax through to small businesses in this state. And I fully intend, as Revenue Subcommittee Chair, to move that bill. But I do not believe that we are doing our job as legislators if we ask the little guy, the David, to pay his taxes, and we do not demand that the big guy, the Goliath, pays their fair share of taxes too. That's what this bill is about. It's about treating Marylanders fairly. It's about everybody paying their fair share. So I will be casting a vote to override the governor's veto of this bill.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, first I want to thank the Majority Leader for sharing such a personal experience with all of us. And the truth of the matter, if this bill was just about tobacco and Facebook, I wouldn't have stood up. But this bill is about the little guy. Colleagues, just 3 days ago, I stood in this very chamber and highlighted the many challenges we are facing as a state. One challenge in particular was about putting money back in the pockets of so many struggling Marylanders. Luckily, this body, over the last several days, has actually been working on a bipartisan bill that would do just that and provide some relief. I was actually feeling kind of good about it, quite frankly. But that feeling was short-lived, because here we are again on another bill that will send our state in the wrong direction. HB 32 is an attack on small business. 99.5% of all businesses in Maryland are small businesses. That's over 580,000 businesses that account for over 1.1 million Maryland residents and make up for more than 50% of our total workforce. 200,000 of those businesses are minority owned. That's right, minority owned. As you know, the last year has been nothing short of a nightmare for our small businesses. I know each member in this chamber has their own horror stories from their respective districts. At the beginning of last year, many of these small businesses were not even permitted to open unless they were classified as essential. For those lucky enough to survive that round of closures, now they are only permitted to operate in a limited capacity. So now, without any foot traffic, our struggling mom and pops, like our Country Kitchen restaurant that the Majority Leader mentioned, have been forced to get creative. And in many cases, they're now building a presence online. Despite that pivot, many still didn't make it. If you need proof of this, just contact your local chamber. They'll tell you how many members have just disappeared. It's heartbreaking. So for the survivors that did make it, many of whom have been treading water for so long, now are drowning. Instead of us sending them a life raft, the General Assembly is now hitting them with HB 32, another tax bill. A new tax on the very thing that this pandemic has forced them to do, which is to go online. How very cruel How very cruel. This isn't fear-mongering. Look at page 32 of the bill under search engine advertising. Our small businesses deserve better than this. I urge my colleagues to show some compassion. Let's not kick our small businesses when they are down. Let's build them up. This pandemic has already taken its toll on our small business community. I ask you today to not add anything else to it. I will be voting to sustain the governor's veto on HB 732. Madam Speaker, thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Allegheny.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll freely confess, I'm always very impressed by the remarks of my very good friend from Montgomery County, who in the 7 years that I've served here is one of the best people I've met here. I disagree with him very much sometimes about policy, but I have a tremendous amount of respect for what he brings to the table. And he said some very interesting things, and I think he's right about some of the things. Tax policy is really important, and it's really complicated. And I think sometimes that because maybe Maryland is so close to the District of Columbia, and some of you probably view yourselves more as Washingtonians even than Marylanders overall because of that Washington, D.C. metro area, the city, Northern Virginia, Montgomery, Prince George's is its own world. That sometimes I think we believe that sitting here in Annapolis, it's as if we're sitting in the halls of Congress, and that we can make policy that applies for everyone, and that the policies we make in Maryland have, they don't have these anti-competitive instincts if other states around us don't do them. This bill has two components we know, and I'll talk briefly about the one, digital advertising tax. Do you know how many of the other 50 states in the United States of America have a digital advertising tax? Big, fat, zero. Do you know how many countries around the world? Because the Google machine, the Facebook machine, it doesn't just work right here in America. It works in Canada and Mexico and all over the world, in Russia and China and South Africa and everywhere. You know how many other countries have adopted this concept? One country has adopted this concept. All the years that digital advertising has been out there, billion, trillion-dollar value companies, no one else has thought, as a legislative body, as a country, as a nation, has thought, this is a good idea, this will work. And so we'll be pretty much the only people trying to do this. And we will place our advertisers at a disadvantage, because I appreciate it, and I believe that I think it's HB 1200 that the majority leader said. I'm sure we'll pass that bill, and I understand the intent of it is not to allow a direct pass along of the costs, but believe me, the people who invented Facebook and Google and Instagram and Twitter, they're smart too. They've got MBAs and all kinds of advanced degrees. They're smart too, and they'll figure out a way around our way around. Instead of them saying, you have to pay a $5 surcharge on your bill from Maryland, they'll just raise the price by $5 for Maryland and D.C. That's their price for advertising in this region. They'll find a way around it, and our people will pay more money, because we don't legislate in a bubble. If no other place is doing it, and we're doing it, then ultimately we'll have an anti-competitive effect. And that's why I'm also very reluctantly against the second portion of this bill about tobacco taxes. We're going to raise our tobacco tax per pack from $2 to $3.75. It'll put us, I think, fourth or fifth in the nation. It'll put us way above Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia, Delaware. And I say I very reluctantly because, as my friend said, I hate cigarettes. I hate tobacco. My Republican friends may disagree with me, but probably if it was up to me, if I was king for a day, I'd probably ban them. Because as my friend said, I lost my grandparents to tobacco. They died 45 minutes apart from each other one night. Emphysema, lung cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. I went to bed one night. They were the most important people in the world to me. And I woke up and they were gone at 70. And that's because they were addicted. They were addicted to nicotine. They were addicted to tobacco. They were addicted to cigarettes. I would love to get rid of that. But we can't do it just right here in the state of Maryland, because some of you know this or may know this. Where I live is so close to West Virginia and Pennsylvania that parts of our county you can walk across the state line. And my grandfather, who I loved as much as anything, he was so addicted to cigarettes and to tobacco. He was a truck driver. My grandmother was a housewife. We were far from rich. He was so addicted to it that if you would have raised the per-pack taxes on him, he would have had two options. Take money out of things that we were going to use for groceries or for gas and use it to buy those cigarettes, or drive a mile or 2 or 3 miles away to West Virginia or Pennsylvania and just buy the cigarettes there. Wouldn't have changed anything. Wouldn't have changed anything for him. Would have hurt some of our local retailers and jobs, I guess. And because we keep doing this, we keep legislating in a bubble as if everything we do is going to have this impact because there's some magic field around the state of Maryland in tax policy. It's just wrong. It's not going to work. And the only people that it's going to hurt in some ways are our own folks, our own small businesses. And for that reason, I urge you to think about these things and to support Governor Hogan's veto. Thank you.
Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and it's good to be with you all here in Annapolis. As you know, I am very fond of most of you. Just trying to lighten the mood. And I'm very fond of many of the people across the way. The Senate President I'm very fond of, and I think he has made a valiant attempt at going after a piece of industry, some industries that really are taking advantage of the tax code and not paying their fair share and getting away with all kinds of horrible things, in my opinion. But I do not believe that this legislation harms them, reins them in, improves their behavior in any way at all. We're standing here debating a veto override that, in all reality, probably will never be implemented no matter what. But if it is implemented and Maryland does receive tax revenue, it will not be because big tech is paying for it. It will be paid for one way or the other, without a doubt, by Maryland companies, small businesses, big businesses, all businesses that take out online advertisements. The bill that's referred to by the majority leader currently states a person who derives gross revenue from digital advertising services in the state may not directly pass on the cost of the tax through under this section to a customer who purchases the digital advertising services by means of a separate fee, surcharge, or line item. Frankly, that protection is not adequate. And in the end, the tap house, the country store, and all the thousands of other retailers, food service operators, and many others who have been crushed over the last year, they're the ones that are going to pay for it. There's no way around it. I understand that, we need to respect the other chamber, but sometimes we need to stand up and say, good try, like the idea, like where you're going with it, but this just doesn't work. If it worked, other folks would be doing it. If it's not going to be paid for by Maryland companies, many legal minds tell us that it's unconstitutional. So if it is enacted, which it looks like it's on the verge of being enacted, it's going to cost Maryland money to defend it, and ultimately, I strongly believe, will be stricken down. And I say that from the perspective of, I'd like to see Facebook pay for it. I really would. I'd like to see Google pay for it. I think that we've got to figure this out. Why can't we figure this out? But this isn't the right way to do it. We need to be smart. In the meantime, I don't know about you, I've got thousands of emails from people begging us not to raise the taxes on their advertising, imploring us not to make it any harder for them to do business. And many of them are saying the same thing. I've got a marketing budget that's shrunk because my revenue has shrunk, and it's a fixed number. I mean, that's all I can afford to market. And if my advertising cost goes up because of this, that means I get to market my business less. So for these reasons and some others, I just think the wise legislative policy is not to move this along. There is another bill. If there's a way to figure this out, maybe we do it in the other bill. But my friends, I think we need to stick with the governor on this one. This isn't wise legislative policy, and we should sustain the governor's veto. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I rise to urge that this body sustains the governor's veto. First, I want to recognize my friend, the majority leader. This bill is very good intentioned, and if I felt like it was going to do, specifically referring to the advertising tax side, if I felt like this bill would accomplish its admirable goal, I would support this bill. I've watched businesses in my district, and we've watched businesses in our state all year, and the inequality of those businesses versus those large businesses where, and to give you an example, we have in Bel Air Way this great kids clothing shop called Tiny Toes. They did well, they did okay. They paid their bills, but they weren't a thriving business. And then when we had our initial lockdown, some of the big box stores were able to stay open, online retailers were able to be open. They were forced to close. And when they reopened, they couldn't get back on track, and unfortunately, they closed because of the lockdown. And I wish this story was not as typical as it has been during this response. So I'm grateful, that we're having this conversation and try to find a way to bring some equality between our local small businesses and the big companies that are, being able to do business in our state and not pay for it. And I'm for anything we can do to raise revenues that's going to not pass on costs or taxes to our residents or to our businesses, especially our small businesses. Unfortunately, I feel like this isn't going to accomplish that. And I want to focus on the constitutionality of the advertising portion of this. This bill is going to cost working families jobs by raising prices of locally sold goods and making those businesses even less competitive. Advertisers will sidestep this, or from the outside of the state will get an unfair advantage. This could ultimately put endangered local small businesses out of business that have been so desperately trying to reestablish their customer bases during this period of economic recovery. I simply want to reference the matter of International Shoe versus Washington regarding territorial jurisdiction, where states only have the power over property or defendants where they can establish significant minimum contacts. The state of Maryland will not be able to prove minimum contacts to give you the jurisdiction to impose this tax. And let me give you an example. I mean, we all have pizza shops. I believe every one of us probably has a pizza shop in their district. And so what one would do is simply, for a couple $100, establish an LLC in Delaware. Then they'll make a purchase from an advertising agency or directly to Facebook or some other company in Delaware. Then that advertising campaign would be delivered to the state of Maryland. So this is where it gets even more complicated. Now, we must establish on the delivery side that the entire campaign that's being taxed was actually physically delivered within the state boundaries, not just upon IP address. But still, this is still just everything used in the air. Now we must establish that a transaction on the working end was due to this campaign. So, for an example, was pizza sold as a direct result of this campaign? Well, one way you can easily track that is by promotional codes, which means if I was a pizza shop owner, I wouldn't use promo codes anymore. I would just count on the advertising working. So now we have a difficult time establishing a transaction that actually took place within the state as a result of this ad campaign. So now we still haven't proven contacts. Now this even gets more complicated with informational and advertorial campaigns where there is no end user transaction. So now how do we prove transactions took place, and how do we prove the entire campaign that we're taxing was delivered in the state of Maryland. Well, that would require us to audit every single ad campaign from anywhere in the planet that was delivered in the state of Maryland. And the cost of that alone would be monumental, and the amount of work and the departments we'd have to establish to be able to follow through with this. So, but even still, the original case, I believe, and it'll be challenged in court, will show that this is unconstitutional. I think it's something we need to pursue. I think it's admirable. I want to help find a way to solve this problem. I just don't believe, based upon current law, that that this is the right answer. And one last point I'd like to make. The Federal Internet Tax Freedom Act states that imposing taxes that single out e-commerce. I'm sorry, let me repeat that. The Federal Internet Tax Freedom Act prohibits imposing taxes that single out e-commerce. You simply cannot single out digital advertising without violating federal law. This is a form of double taxation since Maryland already taxes our businesses. This tax raises the cost for in-state businesses. Worse than that, it has the potential to raise costs for in-state consumers. Again, like I said, if this was going to do what the intention is and not to have these costs ultimately push back on small business, and if it was constitutional, I'm confident I would support this legislation because I do not want tax burdens passed upon to Marylanders and small business where possible. I simply don't believe that's the case for this. I'm grateful this bill is put in, and I please urge this body to sustain the governor's veto here. Thank you.
Sure. Madam Speaker,
Gentleman from Baltimore City.
I rise in support of the override. The committee chair, majority leader, cited Justice Holmes for the proposition that taxes are the price of civilization. I would just add that it was Justice Brandeis who said that the states are the laboratories of democracy. And the fact that no other state has done this yet is not a negative comment, but is the fact that we are exercising that right that we have. If it's sound policy, we should go forward with it. That was apt for the New Deal, and at this particular time, it is also appropriate. Thank you.
Gentleman from Talbot, who's in the annex.
Thank you, Speaker and colleagues. I'm going to say Johnny Mounts, okay? Taxes are intoxicating. Some taxes are good, too many taxes are bad. And I'm here to stand in support of the governor's veto of HB 732. I'm not the only member of the legislature whose district borders other state lines. We've got Caroline County and Wacomico County in our district. And if you want to see the impact on taxes, drive through our district and into Delaware, and it's evident what's going on. Those businesses, they've sought a place where the tax treatment is better. So they've left Maryland and they've set up in Delaware. Facebook and Yahoo, sorry about that. I had a little background noise there. Facebook and Yahoo, they're not moving. They're not going anywhere. You know, we're still in an economic crisis. We're fighting, we're living. Things are operating, but they're not as they appear. And right now, imposing this tax on our digital advertisers, believe it or not, we have digital advertisers who have just taken a foot. Right now is going to hurt them more than ever. You know, when you talk with folks about imposing new taxes and new mandates and things right now, folks that are not in Annapolis, they look at you and say, Johnny, you're out of touch with reality. What are you talking about? We're just trying to pay the bills. You're talking about raising the rent? Not now. We can't do that. Look around. Look what's happening. But in fact, that's what this would do. Sustain this veto because more taxes and bigger government is the wrong way to rebuild our economy and our society. If we need revenue, let's get businesses off government programs and get them open. Just today, the governor held a press conference. Our infection rate is down 40%. I know later today we're going to be talking about a relief bill dealing with COVID. To me, the legislature should only be working on a couple things right now. COVID relief, absolutely. Vaccines, absolutely. And we're talking about adding new taxes. To me, this is out of touch. Please vote to sustain the veto.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support and sustain this veto. My friends on the other side of this tax policy legislation will tell you that this is a fairness tax and that this will make Goliath pay the taxes too. But I'm unfortunately here to tell you that that is the direct opposite. This bill forces an inequity upon certain communities. Those communities that are trying to hold on, struggling families, single parents, trying to just put food on the table. But if this veto is overridden, these communities will pay more. We have, for many years, dating back to the 1920s and 30s, seen legislation that has redlined certain communities in a negative way. These policies, wrongly proposed and passed, hurt certain communities from having greater home ownership, increasing generational wealth, and stifling community entrepreneurship. I implore you to join me and sustain this veto because I believe this is a first stopgap measure that we can stop redlining certain communities over others. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question for the House is, shall the bill pass notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive? A green vote overrides the governor's veto. 85 votes are needed. A red vote sustains the veto. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
The clerk will call the roll. There being 88 votes in the affirmative, HB 732 has been overridden. Message to the Senate. The clerk will read the message.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates has voted to override the governor's veto of House Bill 732. Said bill is sent to you for your consideration.
Hearing no objection, the message is adopted. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, report number 3. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 19, residential real estate transactions, escrow agents, and trust money, favorable.
Question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 110, electric vehicle recharging equipment for multifamily units act. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Yep, I guess it's me. Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 110 is favorable with amendments. As amended, the bill establishes standards relating to the installation and use of electric vehicle recharging equipment in condos and homeowner associations. The First Amendment is technical. The Second Amendment strikes provisions of the bill establishing a grant program within the Maryland Energy Administration to provide for the electrical upgrade of parking structures owned by the governing body of the condominium or homeowners association. Move adoption of the committee amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 146, Department of Agriculture, Spay Neuter Fund, Extension and Fee on Commercial Feed. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On House Bill 146, as amended, the bill extends the termination date for the Spay-Neuter Fund within the Maryland Department of Agriculture by 10 years. The bill also requires MDA to report to the General Assembly on the Spay-Neuter Fund by October 1, 2021. The First Amendment makes technical changes. The Second Amendment strikes from the bill the provisions that would have required a fee increase over what we already have and requires MDA to report to the Maryland General Assembly about the fund by October 1st, 2021. Move adoption of the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 208, Agriculture, Neonicotinoid Pesticides, Sale and Storage. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 208 is favorable with amendments. As amended, this bill establishes that a neonicotinoid pesticide may only be sold at retail to a certified applicator or a farmer. The bill also requires a retailer to store neonicotinoid pesticides in a manner that's inaccessible to customers without assistance. The committee amendment simply strikes the reference to behind the counter, since so many stores don't have counters. So it'll just require that the customer requires assistance. Move adoption of the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 322, Real Property, Restrictions on Use, Low Impact Landscaping. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 322 is amended. As amended, the bill prohibits specified restrictions on use from imposing unreasonable limitations on low-impact landscaping. The bill may not be construed to prohibit a restriction on the use from including reasonable design and aesthetic guidelines regarding the type, number, and location of low-impact landscaping features. Amendment number 1 adds a condition that the property owner maintain and regularly tend to the low-impact landscaping in order for the prohibition under this act to apply. Move adoption of the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the floor leader rise? You're risen.
Of course.
You're standing. I'm reading this bill and I'm finding it confusing. Maybe it's because the double negatives.
We did that deliberately.
I thought you did that to confuse me. Prohibiting restrictions, can you explain,
Yeah.
does this affect private property owners?
Well, I mean, in the sense that you own a house and you're in a homeowners association, what we're attempting to do is stop homeowner associations from prohibiting you to do low-impact landscaping. And a lot of this low-impact landscaping is primarily, these are landscaping techniques that conserve water, lower maintenance costs, provide pollution prevention. This would not allow people to completely redo the front of their property in a way that would violate the aesthetic appearance of the homeowners association or condo association.
But it's not putting restrictions on private property.
Disallowing unreasonable restrictions.
This is where the confusion is. So it's repealing unreasonable restrictions.
No, it's disallowing a homeowners association from imposing unreasonable restrictions. And by reasonable restrictions, I mean, when I was single and I had a townhouse and I didn't mow in front of my place and they would drop the hammer on me, that's totally not what we're talking about.
Okay, so tell me what this looks like in the real world. So it's kind of double negatives here. You're prohibiting, not restricting. So it's only for homeowners associations?
And
Okay.
condos.
And condos.
Right.
So a member of a homeowner association can now plant what they want in their front yard.
I mean, for example, there are a lot of people who have small rain gardens and things like that. And as long as it's not garish, it can't be prohibited. I realize
so
garish is not a legally defined
Garish is a subjective term, right? All right, but I think in the end, what you're telling me is this expands property rights for people to do what they want with their own property.
As long as they are not unreasonable.
Okay, that works then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 367, Real Property Regulation of Common Ownership Community Managers, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, report number 4. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 77, Environment, Application of Coal Tar Pavement Products Prohibition, Safer Sealant Act of 2021. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
I'm forgetting whether or not I'm supposed to do this. Is it me? Is it me? Okay. I can do this.
It's you.
Okay, Madam Speaker, House Bill 77 is favorable with amendments. As amended, this bill prohibits a person beginning October 1st, 2022 from supplying, selling, offering for sale, or manufacturing a high PAH driveway sealer for use in the state. Second, as amended, it also refers to applying or soliciting the application of a high PAH driveway sealer to pavement in the state, or 3, supplying, selling, offering for sale, or manufacturing a driveway sealer for use in the state unless the driveway sealer complies with specified labeling requirements. The Maryland Department of the Environment must develop labeling standards and adopt regulations as specified. The First Amendment is technical and makes changes to the title of the bill. The Second Amendment updates provisions under the Maryland Clean Water Fund to receive any fees or funds that the department collects under the bill, or any penalties imposed by a court under this bill. Amendment 3 alters the scope of the bill as previously described. Move adoption of the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Let me adopt the amendment first.
Sorry, on the bill.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The gentleman who had a
Thank you,
gentleman
Madam
from
Speaker.
Baltimore
Just
County.
a question for the floor leader. I don't know a whole lot about what this stuff does, but can you tell me what, I guess, the consensus is on what is so wrong with it that it needs to be banned? Because it just seems like a very drastic measure for some product that, unless there's a history of people getting ill and dying, because I was told that this stuff has been going on since the 50s. And been used since the 50s.
You mean
so-
like back in the day when we used DDT?
No, I mean, if you can tell me that this stuff is really killing people, then I'll be glad to vote for it. But if not, then
Well, look, I mean, obviously, we don't often ban substances in the state of Maryland, and in the 7 years I've been chair of this committee, I've been very hesitant to do so. We've only done this as a committee when we felt that the scientific evidence indicated that there was a danger behind this substance, and frankly, our assessment and my assessment is that PAH is a dangerous substance. But we're not, by the way, just for the sake of information, Kent, Washington, and Worcester counties, Baltimore City, the town of Bel Air and Leonardtown, the city of Salisbury, all advise their jurisdictions not to use these products that are typically called coal tar products. We took that definition out of the bill. We want to make it specific to that chemical. Now, you'll be happy to know that there are plenty of driveway applications that are just as good as the standard old coal tar products, but they don't have PAH as a active chemical in them. And so we're not banning the use of something that we all typically use. I think also, let's see, hold on. In addition, according to our staff, Anne Arundel, Howard, Montgomery, and Prince George's County have similar bans against these products. And if memory serves correctly, a number of states have done this as well. So we're not, we're not the first to do this.
I appreciate it. I didn't know much about it, so thank you.
Yep.
The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Gentleman from the Eastern Shore who is in the annex.
I really hate talking. Off my game.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A question for the floor leader.
Certainly.
I did.
I hope that answers your question.
Question for the floor leader.
Just kidding, of course. You're right. There is a bit of a delay here, isn't there? Yep, about a half-second delay.
Floor leader.
Yes, I'm here. Go ahead and ask the question, please.
Madam Speaker, can we hold this bill so I can ask this question at the appropriate time?
Sure, I'll move to special order the bill until the appropriate time later.
Maybe do this offline?
This evening.
Okay.
Tomorrow? We'll special order the bill until the appropriate time tomorrow.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Bill has been special ordered to the appropriate time tomorrow. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 94, Environment Water Quality Revolving Loan Fund, Use of Fund. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 94 is favorable with amendments as amended. The bill expands the authorized uses of the guarantee authority under the Maryland Water Quality Revolving Loan Fund by repealing the restriction that the fund be used only to guarantee or purchase insurance for bonds, notes, or other evidences of obligations issued by the local government for purposes of financing all or a portion of the cost of a wastewater facility. The First Amendment makes technical changes to the purpose and function paragraphs. Amendment number 2 alters the use of the fund to allow the additional financial guarantees consistent with federal law. Move adoption of the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 178, vehicle laws, reckless driving, speed contests, registration plates, and noise abatement penalties. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be the to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you. The committee amendments strike alterations of certain penalties for violations related to reckless and negligent driving, registration plates, and noise abatement. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 267, sewage treatment plants, effluent discharges, impacts on midge populations. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 267 is favorable with amendments as amended. The bill requires the Department of the Environment to monitor effluent discharges from sewage treatment plants and to evaluate whether the effluent and any of its nutrients in the effluent impact midge populations in the surrounding land and water areas. By October 1st of each year, beginning in 2022, Maryland Department of the Environment must submit an annual report to the General Assembly on activities conducted in accordance with the bill. The bill takes effect July 1 of this year. Amendment 1 makes technical changes to the purpose paragraph. Amendment 2 changes the semi-annual reporting requirement in the bill to an annual reporting requirement. Move adoption of the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 492, railroad company, movement of freight, required crew. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 2. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 14, pharmacist, prescription drug and device labels, expiration dates. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Be so much considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment makes the bill an emergency bill. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 130, Commission on LGBTQ Affairs established. Favorable.
Question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title?
Yes, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. Can you hear me?
The gentleman from Western Maryland in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can you hear me? Very good. I have an amendment at the desk. It's Amendment 373425/1.
Amendment number 1.
So much the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
This amendment suggests that we address an important issue, and it just adds language to the bill that would increase the scope of the study commission that's going forward. This amendment would say it would study and establish best practices for primary and secondary schools, youth leagues, and scholarship boards to prevent athletes who were assigned female at birth from being displaced by transgender female athletes in consideration for athletic scholarships and participation in sports. This is an important addition to the study commission that's put together. I'm going to read a little bit from an article. It says, for girls who have trained and sacrificed and excelled, and they've emerged as champions, but instead they've been sidelined by competing with biological males who beat them to the finish line. Women should not be relegated to clapping politely from the bench while biological males pump their fist in victory at the finish line. As we consider Title IX and scholarships going to college, we need to be studying this. I think it's an important addition to this bill. So I'd offer this amendment and urge the body to accept it. Thank you.
Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore City.
Chair of the subcommittee. This legislation that is now before us is identical to a bill that we passed out last year by a vote of 104 to 25. I would also add that this issue was not presented to us at the committee level, and it's of such significance that it should not be adopted after a minute and a half debate on the House floor. This should have been a separate bill that the committee could have considered on its own. So we would urge unfavorable on the amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And after hearing the amendment, I just felt compelled to speak on this because, well, first, before I even say anything, I want to start by saying we should never, of course, disparage anybody on how they want to freely and authentically choose how to live their life. So I want to just mention that. But that's as long as it doesn't infringe on anyone else's rights or opportunities. When I hear what a delegate from Western Maryland had to say with this amendment, and couldn't help but stand in defense today for the literally thousands and thousands of young female aspiring athletes dedicated, of course, to not only competing but succeeding in their sport. And the reason I really wanted to stand up, because I have a lot of family members, come from a family with many females that played sports, both high school, college. They loved what they did. They were dedicated to their craft. And for me, I look at what my sister did as an athlete, playing, training, every day training for trying to make the high school team, trying to make the college team, all the passion, and she was successful in all that. And what I see here is something that could really derail the dreams that somebody like my sister had, where she succeeded with a college scholarship, but have an individual that identified as a transgender biological male taken her spot on the team. Her life could have possibly been different. She may have not received college scholarship because she wasn't scouted by the college coaches. She may have not been able to experience the high school, the joys of winning, competing, making teammates and friends lifelong. And this all because, again, this isn't meant to disparage anybody, but she would have to compete against an individual who has physical advantages that no matter how hard she tried, she would not be able to overcome. And this isn't just about my sister, but this is literally about thousands of girls who have that dream. I just want to reiterate that by taking an example of a star, of world-class, perhaps one of the greatest female athletes that's ever lived, is Allison Felix. She's the Olympic gold medalist, 6-time, I think, gold medals. And if you take her time in the 400 meter and you take that compared to what the males in high school boys track, over 300 boys just in the USA alone beat her time. They're not training harder than she is. They're not more skilled than she is. It's simply they have biological advantages due to, I don't need to get into details. We all know what the biological advantages are. And when I look at this, I think, why or how would we live if somebody like Allison Felix is pushed aside? We may not ever see the actual success stories of such a great, phenomenal athlete. And then you look at that, well, would that be the same with my sister? Could that be the same with your daughter, your granddaughter? And I think that this is not an issue of, again, how somebody decides to identify or live their life, but this is about fairness for those female athletes. And that's why I support the amendment, and I urge the body to as well. Thank you.
On the amendment. Any further debate on the amendment? The question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no.
Roll call, Madam Speaker.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker?
Clerk to take the call. The amendment fails. Any other amendment to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 191, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Psychiatrist and Psychiatric Nurse Practitioner, Telemedicine Reimbursement, Sunset Termination, favorable.
The question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Oh, did it wrong.
One more bill.
Okay. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 233, State Board of Professional Counselors and Therapists, Maryland Music Therapists Act. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam
Recognizing
Speaker.
the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Amendment 1 removes professional counselors and therapists, which is the title of a board, and substitutes examiners for audiologists, hearing aid dispensers, and speech and language pathologists. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. For the Committee on Ways and Means, report number 2. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 6, Economic Development, Maryland Technology Development Corporation, alterations. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Amendment number 1 is technical. Sorry, I'll pass it off to the chair of the committee.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Ms. Majority Leader. The one amendment, the amendment requires at least one of the 2 members of the board representing colleges and universities to represent a historically black college or university. Move the amendment.
The question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 320, Maryland Longitudinal Data System, transfer of student data, modifications. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered to print it for third reading. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means, report number 4. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 7, Income Tax Credit, Venison Donation Expenses, Montgomery County Deer Donation Program. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 clarifies procedures for an individual to claim a certain income tax credit for expenses incurred to hunt, harvest, and transport a deer for donation to the Montgomery County Deer Donation Program, and establishes a venison donation grant program in the Department of Natural Resources to provide grants to defray the cost of butchering and processing deer donated to programs that provide nutritional support or food for low-income individuals or the homeless. Move the committee amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 237, State Department of Education, Early Literacy and Dyslexia Practices, Guidance and Assistance. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires the MSDE and Stakeholder Advisory Group to identify tools and materials for at-risk and struggling readers. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 335, Election Law, Party and Elected Public Offices, Prohibitions. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 clarifies that an individual may hold a public office and be a delegate to the National Presidential Nominating Convention at the same time. I move the adoption of the committee amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of favorable report as amended. All in favor?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman. Let me put the favorable report first. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Quick question for the floor leader. Does this bill cover both parties, both Republican and Democrat parties?
That is a wonderful question, Delegate. Yes, it does cover both parties.
And so I understand the concern from your perspective might have been from your jurisdiction, but have you seen any support or concern in the Republican Party for this bill?
In terms of testimony at the hearing, I don't think so, but let me check with committee staff to see if we received anything from a specific party, you're saying?
I'm having trouble.
I'll share for the gentleman that no one testified on this bill from either party, and nor is it correct for you to suggest that it had to do anything with our county. Thank you.
We also passed this bill out of the House last year, Delegate.
And I just wanted to clarify that this would cover both parties, and I think that I just wanted to make that clear. This would prevent the Republican Party in Maryland from deciding whether or not who could serve on their central committees if this were to pass.
No, Delegate, that would not be accurate. It ensures that someone cannot hold elected office, such as the way that we are elected delegates, and also hold a party office. And it applies to all parties.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 392, Child Care Centers, Early Childhood Screening and Assistance. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam
Recognizing
Speaker.
the committee chair.
Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters the service provided by Child Care Center to screenings rather than evaluations, and provides that a personal message rather than a publicly posted sign is sufficient for parents. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 398, Election Law, Time Off for Employee Voting. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing subcommittee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 makes an employee eligible for up to 2 hours paid leave on the day that the employee chooses to vote, whether that is on election day or during early voting. Madam Speaker, I move the adoption of the committee amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 441, Department of Assessments and Taxation, Identification Number for Business Task Force. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendment removes the Department of Health from the task force.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Letters of reassignment. The clerk will read the letter.
House Bill 1009, reassigned to Economic Matters and Environment and Transportation.
Hearing no objections, the letters have been read and ordered journalized. That ends the work of the desk. Democratic Caucus Chair.
Madam Speaker, caucus members, we are going to have Democratic Caucus tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. Look to your inbox for a link, okay? 9:30 a.m. And it will be a unique link for tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Republican Caucus Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Republican Caucus will meet tomorrow morning. Look at your computer for the links at 9:30 a.m.
Recognizing the committee chair for Ways and Means. HGO, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. That committee has a hearing starting about 10 minutes after we adjourn, just FYI.
Recognizing the committee chair from Environment and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Environment and Transportation Committee will continue public hearings 10 minutes after we adjourn here.
Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before our public hearing, we're going to have a Revenue Subcommittee meeting, voting session on one bill, and then a full committee voting session, and then immediately thereafter a hearing. So to all members, come as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Does anyone have any changes to existing announcements? Recognizing the gentleman from, I don't know which hat you're wearing, but
Delegation announcement, Madam Speaker.
Montgomery County delegation. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I apologize, but the Montgomery County delegation will meet at 8:45 a.m. tomorrow morning via Zoom, 8:45 a.m. Thank you.
Prince George's delegation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Prince George's County delegation will not meet tomorrow morning.
Baltimore City delegation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know people don't want to hear this news, but the Baltimore City delegation will be meeting at 8 a.m. We have a lot of business to attend to. 8 a.m. Thank you.
Any other delegation?
Madam Speaker.
Where am I looking at?
Madam Speaker. The Baltimore County delegation.
Please check your emails for your delegation announcements, please. And a reminder that all committee bill hearings are listed in the Maryland General Assembly website. Quorum call before adjournment.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? The clerk will take the call. There being 132 members present, the House is still in session, recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand adjourned until Friday, February 12th at 10 a.m.